Hi, all. Thanks so much for joining Making Healthcare Work for You, Different Perspectives and Empowering Solutions. I'm Stephanie Fields, joined by my co-host, Dr. Apoorv Gupta. And today we're welcomed by Pantea Vahidi, who is the founder of the Compassion Clinic. And we were talking about her framework for compassion overall, respond, relieve, and resolve. And then also a new app that she has that's going to be a new robust way to support people and help encourage them to be compassionate. So for our one question segment, Apoorv, throwing it to you.
Thank you, Stephanie. I appreciate that, Panta. This interview with you was just unbelievable. I feel so touched and blessed. I feel that every time we speak to you, it's just an incredible amount of, just compassion that exudes out of you. So, and learning, growth, opportunity. I hope our audience will feel the same way. As I was hearing some of the points that you were making in our interview, one thought that was coming to me is this sense of the metaphors you were using of how we pour into each other, how we refuel each other, and how do we make sure that we're really taking care of ourselves as well. And some of the mindset changes that need to happen so that we can allow ourselves to be more creative and be more supportive, be more compassionate with each other and with our patients. And so the thought came to me about potentially one of the changes having to be a shift in thinking from lack of mindset to an abundance mindset, a fear that maybe we don't have enough, a fear that whatever we have may be a depleting resource, that, the more we use will get used up. And so sometimes maybe that makes us hesitant. Maybe it may be a matter of time that we think we don't have, or some resource we don't have, or some emotional reserve that we feel like we can tap into because we need to save it for when we get home and have to, deal with the kids after dinner or something. So how can you help us think a little bit about where does this compassion truly come from, and how does that match up with this idea of an abundance mindset where we realize that the more we actually express of compassion, the more we have within us?
I absolutely adore your questions. They are so well thought out and so deep and meaningful, Apoorv. Thank you for welcoming me back. The idea of feeling depleted is real. It's a real fear. And we live in a culture that compassion fatigue is a term. Now, I know many in the audience may not like what I'm about to say, but I don't believe we have compassion fatigue. And here's why. In the healthcare system, when you go around throwing words out like compassion fatigue and burnout, when you tell people compassion fatigue, you immediately think, then if I'm compassionate, I'm going to be fatigued. So we're creating this association, and then we're expecting people to be compassionate. Of course, people are thinking, I'm going to be depleted. Now, I believe being compassionate towards people and experiencing what the evidence and the literature calls compassion satisfaction is the antidote to exhaustion. Nothing else can replete you more than that sense of purpose and that sense of meaning that I made a difference. No exercise, no practice, no food, no amount of sleep can fill that hole and that piece of your soul more than that compassion satisfaction can. And it's an actual term in the literature, which it's less talked about than compassion fatigue. Now, when you talk about where does compassion come from, we're all loving beings. We are all made of love. Now, you're thinking, really, Panta? Are we? My boss isn't. But if speaking of change of perspective, that's such a powerful tool. Not only shifting from a mindset of lack to abundance. I have abundance love. I have abundant amount of compassion that I can give. Not only that's powerful, another mindset shift that I've find to be very powerful is shifting from the perspective of people are out there to get me, people are out there to hurt me, to a mindset of people are doing the best they can to get through life with all their pain and suffering and battles. And that shift in and of itself, to know that hurt people, to know that a patient that's laying on the bed in fear of their life is not going to be at their best behavior, and their tone of voice towards me is not directed at me, it's them drowning in their suffering, and I'm just seeing an overspill of it. To shift that perspective of going, the person who just pulled in front of me and took my parking spot was trying to stick it to me, then thinking, you have no idea what they have going on. Maybe they're in a hurry. Maybe they had a bad day. Maybe they just got some bad news. And to shift that perspective and say, I'm going to let them have their parking spot. If that's the best thing that can happen to them today, let me be the cause of it. And how that mindset is essential to being able to have inner peace and experience inner joy. Because your mindset determines your life. And if you go through the world thinking, my supervisor's out there to get me, my patients are there to bother me, my kids are out there to annoy me, my spouse is out there to frustrate me, and it's me against the world, that's going to be a life filled with suffering. But if you shift that mindset to everyone's fighting their own battles with their history, with their childhood trauma, with their life's journey, with their current struggles, whether it's financial, health, whatever they have going on in their life, that mindset in and of itself reignites a lot of compassion. And I know this is a bold statement to make, but I believe every human being is born compassionate. Now, what happens throughout life makes people withhold it in the fear of, if I give it, I'm going to run out of it, or with the thought of, people don't deserve it. But understanding that being compassionate to others is actually most beneficial to you yourself could negate that mindset that I'm going to be replenished with a reward that nothing else in the world can provide.
It's fascinating listening to you talk about compassion, because in so many ways it's like parenting, and maybe that's when it starts, not letting it filter out of kids whenever they have that. But like, there are so many times that, whether it's sharing a toy or getting whatever, does this matter? No. Maybe that person had this. Maybe they have an older sibling who always takes their toys. Let this be the time that they get to have that first. And so I feel like it is that kind of constant redirection of those thoughts. And both of you mentioned running out of the supply as if it's finite. It's not like on the Santa Claus 2 when Tim Allen has to find the wife, and it's like he has this finite amount of magic, and then if he doesn't find the wife, his magic runs out and he's done forever. This is the opposite. We're multiplying, like you've both said. It's amplification, and it's just applicable to so many things, whether it is parenting, whether it's healthcare, whether it's anything. It really is a fascinating conversation. So thank you so much for sharing all of your thoughts on this.
Oh, it's my pleasure. And I'll just piggyback on what you said with the finite amount of magic. The magic of compassion not only keeps being cultivated within us each time we give more of it, it actually replicates. It creates this ripple effect that you inspire others. So many of us know stories of kindness and compassion that has turned someone's life around. They were bitter towards life, and a stranger with a random act of kindness has changed their life. So not only it multiplies inside of you, it also multiplies outside of you. And the last point I'll share is that I was once, it was during COVID and everybody was exhausted. And I was sitting in the team room with a physician colleague of mine. And he was telling me about a patient that's critical. And the conversation we had led to talking about desensitization. And Stephanie, you talked about how a lot of this could be formed with our parenting or in early on in our childhood. A lot of it is also formed during school, during, being brought in different cultures. And he told me, I've learned to desensitize because I don't know what else to do. And that moment was like, wow, this is why people need these tools to be equipped with, because by default, whether it's in residency or medical school or any other kind of training, they've defaulted to desensitization. But what I will say, in the spirit of what Apoorv originally asked about being depleted, we may think that desensitizing and compartmentalizing and thinking, I'll leave these at work and I'm going home and I need to focus on my family, we may be under the assumption that that's helpful. But when we desensitize ourselves and we're essentially telling the world, I don't feel, I am detached, I don't feel what you're feeling, whatever's happening out here is not affecting me, which to me is the biggest lie. But here's something else that's happening. When you're desensitizing and blocking your feelings and telling whatever story you are telling yourself that this patient is not real or you're disassociating, you're also depriving yourself from feeling the most beautiful reward of that human connection. You can't block one and not the other.
Amazing.
So when you're blocking these feeling receptors and disassociating from that other person, you're also depriving yourself of that repletion cycle, which is food for your soul.
Thank you so much. That's amazing. We appreciate your time.
I appreciate you.
So profound. Thank you.
And thank you all for watching. We'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.